Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and what I got here is this Sony 12 to 24 millimeter f4 G lens. This is a great lens for landscapes in particular, and architecture and things like that. Anywhere you're going to need like a super wide angle view of things. So it creates like an effect, as you'll see in the photos behind me. It like pulls you into the photo a little more than a less of a wide angle would. And it also makes like landscape scenes in particular seem like super vast and like epic. If I want that look, I'm going to strap on a wide angle lens, okay? That being said, this is Sony's full frame E-mount solution to a wide angle, zoom lens. And it's a constant f4 aperture. It has the G badge on it, so you can expect top quality optics, and it does provide top quality optics. Now, one downside I've noticed with this lens right out of the gate, there is no thread on the front to put filters on, okay? So that kind of sucks. There's no way to mount anything, so you're gonna have to come up with some kind of rigging mechanism of some sort in order to put big square filters in front of this. I'm sure there's kits out there that you can adapt to the lens and all, but again, it's nice having a filter thread, and this lens does not have it. It has this like built-in hood, and then it has this like lens cap that goes on over everything like so. All right. Now, another thing about this lens that I don't particularly care for is at 12 millimeter, there's very heavy vignette, as you'll see behind me. That's basically the shadowing that creeps in from the edges. And just because the lens is so long and so wide, it's going to suffer from quite a bit of it. Now, distortion-wise, it's actually pretty well controlled. You are going to see some serious stretching in the corners, but as far as vertical lines go and horizontal lines go, it's pretty well controlled in that regard. But it does stretch the corners out. So I have an example behind me of Bones Jones, and you can see his blue play ball, how it looks like an oval shape, okay? That's because the wide angle is really stretching those edges out to get more information in. And that's really the only way that the lens can achieve that, optical phenomenon, basically. It has to like stretch somewhere. They have to like stretch it in order to bring everything back in, and that's just engineering. So another thing that's pretty interesting about this lens is the front element actually moves, as you can see here. See how it's moving? Just a little bit. Also, what's really cool about this lens is it has a focus hold button, and it also has a manual and autofocus switch on the side, which I really like, so you don't have to go into the menu to turn off the autofocus. Sometimes the lens will just not focus on what you want, and you just want to use manual, and this is a great feature there. All right, now the zoom is very smooth. It's a very short throw, as you can see here. It's from there to there, so it's not a long throw. And the focus ring is very, very smooth. It's nice and buttery. The focus ring and the zoom has this nice rubber texture, so it's very easy to grab. Even if you have gloves on, you're not gonna have a problem. And in addition to that, it has a super fast SSM focus motor in there. So if you wanna use this for action photography, this lens is totally capable of keeping up in the focus, I always think with a lens like this, you could be like underneath a jump at a motocross track or something like that. Particularly these days, snowboarding. Me and Layla are going snowboarding right now on the weekends and stuff. And this is a great lens if you're like right behind the jump and you're trying to get your friend, doing like an awesome tail grab or something. A wide angle lens like this is great. And with that super fast focus motor, it'll be able to keep up with the subject, even if it's coming directly at you, assuming the camera is capable, of course. The A7R2 is. The A7R3 is even more capable. This lens also has the nano AR coatings on select elements inside, which really helps keep that contrast nice and crisp. It does make a difference in the contrast area in particular. The lens does suffer from quite a bit of lens flare, and that's very common on ultra wide angle lenses because there's so much curvature to this optic on the front. It's just going to pull in light, so they're more susceptible to lens flare, I've noticed over the years. And you can see behind me that there is quite a bit of lens flare. It looks kind of cool though. You can actually use it to get some nice effects, so I do like that. So if you stop it down to like F11, F16, things like that, you'll create this awesome star effect with the sun, as you can see behind me. And it really does produce a cool effect, and I really enjoy the way the outputs on this particular lens. Corner sharpness is very good on this lens, especially considering the insane wide angle view. Color and clarity is also very good. I shot RAW, I shot some JPEG, and the JPEGs are nice and punchy. The RAWs are obviously much more flat, but you bring it into Lightroom or equivalent program, and you can get the lens to, you can get the photos to, really punch up nicely, as you can see behind me. All right, so a few other things. This lens is dust and moisture resistant, so you can you could rest assured that outside and, some inclement weather, water's not going to get in here and things like that, fog, dust, sand, things like that. I wouldn't go and bury the thing underwater or throw it in a sand dune at the beach, obviously. Okay, it's not full-fledged weather sealing, but it is dust and moisture resistant. The lens is quite beefy. It does weigh in at 1.25 pounds. It has a 7-blade aperture. Okay, so you're going to get some nice out-of-focus bokeh renderings. It's a nice smooth out-of-focus area, so I like that. This lens actually goes for approximately $1,700, okay? So $1,698, somewhere around there. So it is pretty darn expensive, I mean, for sure. Here's a couple of photos I just wanted to go over quick, and note on the top left, you'll see the information. You got the focal length, and you also have the lens aperture setting, ISO, shutter speed, for example, and also it'll tell you JPEG or RAW. This particular image I shot in JPEG, and this was at 12 millimeter, and what I wanted to show you in this photo is the corner detail and corner sharpness in particular, okay? So you can see up here in the corner, it looks quite good. Here's a couple more real-world shots. Some of you guys might be aware of this. This is by Tuxedo, New York. It's called the Red Apple Rest. It's actually closed nowadays, but it used to be like back in the day. It was like really famous and popular. But anyways, what I wanted to show you with this image was just the difference between 12 and 24, first of all. So this is 12 millimeter, okay? And now look at 24 millimeter. So you could see 24 millimeter looks like you're zoomed in so far, but in general, 24 millimeter is pretty wide, so it's a drastic difference. 12 millimeter is so wide, it's incredible. Look up at the telephone pole here on the top left, and just look how sharp that is. So even at 12 millimeter, extremely sharp, and I was shooting at f4, so wide open. All right. Now another thing I wanted to show you was the vignette. Now the vignette is really severe. I mean, this is probably one of the heaviest vignettes I've ever seen on a lens, to be honest with you. I mean, I haven't tested that many lenses, but I've tested quite a few over the years, and the vignette on this lens is really dark. Like, it really darkens the photo quite a bit. So you can see without the lens correction here just how much vignette is there, okay? So when I enable it, it goes away, and you could also notice the distortion, which really isn't that bad. The distortion is very well controlled overall. So here's another one at 24, and I just want to show you again what kind of distortion you're looking at and vignette at wide open. Well, this is actually at f5.6 rather. So there's not that much distortion. There's a little bit less vignette at this focal range, okay? Now here's another one. This is another view looking through the fence here, and I just wanted to show you the fence out of focus right here on the top left, and also just how wide, Again, this is 12 millimeter, and let me show you without the lens correction so you can see how heavy the vignette is. And this is at f5.6, so it's stopped down a little bit. So here's just another angle. And here's just another shot here. This is at 24 millimeter, and I just wanted to show you again the detail and clarity. And you can see this insane wire mess that it used to feed this building. But look at the clarity. I mean, sharpness is very, very good. And I have a couple more images here. I can show you more detail. Let me just zoom in on this danger sign. Now look at that. You can see the paint. You see that like stucco or whatever it is. And this is the kind of clarity and sharpness you would expect from, a lens at this price. It's not cheap. So it better be sharp. You know what I mean? Especially all across the board. And you can see it is. Corner sharpness is very good. Clarity is excellent. Color is really good. It's got nice pop to it. And here's another example, just so you can see the detail. And this is just a lower view here, so you can see the concrete in the foreground, how it pulls the eye in at 12 millimeter. Now here's just an architecture shot. I took this same picture with the 16 to 35 A-mount lens I recently reviewed, 12 millimeter versus 16 millimeter, and basically at the end of the day the images look very similar. You could see the architecture, the clarity, very, very good. Okay, it's exceptionally good all the way at the tip of this building. And again, in the center area, you can see the sharpness. The quality and clarity is excellent. So just like the A-mount lens, the sharpness and clarity is very good, and the distortion control is also really good, in my opinion, especially for 12 millimeter. Now, like I said, it's going to stretch. It's going to stretch the edges out, which is why that point on the building is so exaggerated looking. But that's that cool wide-angle view that you get, So it comes with the wide-angle lens, as part of the package. Here's just another angle looking down the street, so you can see at 12 millimeter, what kind of, you know, depth and stuff you're going to get. Now here's another 12 millimeter versus 24 millimeter. So this is 24 millimeter and this is 12 millimeter. Okay. So let me just disable the lens profile quickly so you can see the vignette and the distortion. All right. So that's with the correction. That's without the correction. So the distortion again is very well controlled overall, I would say, but the vignette is very heavy. And here's 24 millimeter. And again, you can see the distortion is pretty well controlled. Now here is a couple of lens flare shots. So I was shooting into the sun, trying to get some cool lens flare effects because, I mean, let's face it, it looks pretty cool. I mean, that the elements you could see in there, I enjoy some lens flare. So, and you could, depending on the angle and the zoom you're at and the aperture you have the lens set to, your lens flare is going to look different. So you can play around with that to get different effects, okay? So I like to tend to have it in the like corner areas, and that really exaggerates the lens flare the most, I think. You know, so like I said, it's pretty fun. And you can see it here, how it renders and stuff. Nothing crazy. Here's Bones Jones on the deck. Now, this is at 12 millimeter, so I was just showing you the perspective on the deck. So my deck's like, you know, 12 feet by whatever it is, 15 feet or so. And you really get a lot of that in the shot, you know, on such a wide angle lens. And Bones is huge. He's 120 pounds, so he looks like a small dog almost here. Now, this is the image I wanted to show you with the ball where it's elongated. I showed it to you earlier, but here's a better view. So you can see, you know, just how much it looks like an egg. And this ball is actually round. You know, so this is that stretching phenomenon that you get at the edges of the lens in particular. You're not going to see that so much in the center area. So if you're taking pictures of people, you know, if they're in the center area, it's not going to look too bad. But towards the edges, they're going to stretch, you know, so people's heads will stretch. So not the best for portraits in that regard. But for that wide angle effect, it really looks cool. All right, so here's just another view looking down the deck. I was just showing you more wide angle view here. There's Bones Jones. Here's another one of Bones on the deck, and let me just zoom in to show you the sharpness. And you can see it's very good. Very good. The ball here is sharp, and you can see in the foreground it's blurry with that depth of field. And this is wide open at f4. And the background blur is another thing I wanted to show you, the out of focus bokeh area. You could see how the trees render, and they look very good to me. That's you know, nice pleasing bokeh rendering to my eye. So I thought that looked good, you know. So that's pretty much some more samples. Look at his big foot on my hand. And you can see, let me just zoom in and I'll show you again the sharpness on his eye. And again, just look at that clarity. That's 12 millimeter f4, and it's really sharp. Super, super sharp and crisp. And here's just the Christmas tree. You know, Christmas just passed, so that I actually have to take the tree down. It's still set up. Just a few shots inside so you can see what kind of wide angle. This is at 22 millimeter. This is at 17 millimeter. And you can see how much you can, you know, view in the in my living room in particular here. And this is just a darker image showing off the lights. Now here's Jace. He got this cool little couch, and he's eating an M&M. You could see there. And here's another angle. This is also at 24 millimeter. Now we went down to the Basher Kill real quick, and I just wanted to show you some more sharpness and landscape photography, because after all, this really is a landscape. If you're going to use the lens for something, landscapes tends to be one of the most common for a wide angle. Now just look at this sharpness here. That's unbelievable, right? So that's what you get with a lens of this caliber though, okay? And that's at 24 millimeter. So here's 12 millimeter. I was in the same exact spot, I didn't move. So at 12 millimeter, again, you can see this unbelievable clarity, and the background just looks fantastic, the out of focus in my opinion. You really get that sense of vast distance, you know, like I was telling you with the wide angle, everything just looks vast and like epic or something. And here's another image. And again, you've seen this image before, but not necessarily at this wide of an angle. So it just makes it look wider and bigger and more vast, you know. And I can zoom in here and show you the sharpness, and it's really good, as you can see. And it was really cold out this day. I was freezing. But look at the sharpness and the snow and everything. The detail is just phenomenal. And of course, the A7R II I was using, which is 42 megapixel. Now I just wanted to show you one more 24 millimeter versus 12 millimeter. Standing in the same spot, just pointing down. You can see my feet there. So that's 12 millimeter, and that's 24 millimeter from the same spot looking down, you know. And here's just another image just to show you the vast landscape view. Here's that cool star pattern that you can get if you stop the lens down. In this particular case, I went to f20 to really exaggerate it. This is a very high quality lens. It's very expensive also. You know, $1,700 is a lot of money. If you can afford it and you're looking for an ultra wide angle lens, this is a great option. Like I said, if you need the native lens mount because you're doing video, or you want the fastest tracking for action, things like that, then this is a really good option to choose from, in my opinion. So I really had a good time using the lens, and it does perform extremely well. And that's about it for this review, guys. So I really hope you got what you were looking for. The sample photos pretty much show you what the lens is capable of. If you have any questions, as always, be sure to ask below the video, and I'll be happy to, you know, entertain your thoughts, comments, questions, etc. And also be sure to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. I'd appreciate it. Let me know what you want to see reviewed next. You know, I'm open to anything. If you want me to review another camera, a different lens, or whatever, let me know. I got a lot of requests for the new 24 to 105 f4 lens from Sony, and I plan on reviewing that next with the Sony a7R III. We'll see how it goes. I'll catch up with you guys next time, and thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it.